Okay, so we're continuing with our series on the gradual training. And tonight we're on the topic of samasati, right mindfulness, which is the seventh step on the Noble Eightfold Path. Noble Eightfold Path is the path to the end of suffering that the Buddha taught, and the fleshed out sort of aspect of it, or the fleshed out teaching of it, is called the gradual training. So Noble Eightfold Path and gradual training, basically the same thing, only the gradual training has sort of more details in it. So I'm going to do a bit of a quick review of the first steps of the gradual training and the Noble Eightfold Path, and then talk about the new topic, samasati, right mindfulness. And I'm hoping this is very practical for your meditation practice. I'm wanting to make this very simple and very practical. So it's just a few pages long. So I hope we have lots of time for discussion. Because I'm hoping everybody can be very clear how to put this into their everyday practice. So as we've learned, first of all, there's a person who arises in the world who sort of discovers natural laws. So that person we call Buddha, because Buddha means awake. So somebody who wakes up to these natural laws and then teaches. And then we have to be able to hear those teachings and then have a heart response, be inspired to want to test out, like, is what this person's saying, is it valid? Will it help me suffer less if I follow this gradual training or follow this Noble Eightfold Path? So step one of the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. And that's basically saying that trying to satisfy all our desires doesn't give us lasting happiness. There's another way. It's this going inwards and finding this sort of inner peace, this inner stillness that gives us sort of a more consistent happiness, or takes us out of suffering. So that's right view, step one. The next step is to clean up our morality. So it's basically non-harming, being kind. So you can just break it down to the most simple thing, be kind. So it's very simple. And if you feel like you need some guidance in here, the Buddha provided the 5 precepts, like don't kill, don't steal, don't abuse people with your sexual energy, and use right speech. Don't lie, don't use harsh speech or divisive speech or useless speech. And then avoid drugs and alcohol, because then they dull the mind and then make you break all the other precepts. So that covers, if we're cleaning up our morality, then that's covering step 3. I forgot to mention step 2. Step 2 is basically covered by non-harming, because that's right motivation. What's our motivation behind our behavior, behind our speech, behind our thoughts? And that's basically non-harming, being kind, being compassionate, being generous, and also renunciation, simplifying our life. And then steps 3, 4, and 5 are the right action, like, so having non-harming behavior, right speech. I just went blank. Right livelihood. So having a job, having a livelihood, having an income that doesn't cause harm. Okay, then the next one, there's a whole group of different teachings that sort of are involved with the next step. One of them is contentment. if we're not content, if you're desiring something, that means you're feeling a lack. So then you're not going to be feeling happy. You're going to be feeling restless or unhappy because you're feeling like you need something, or you need something to go away in order to be happy. So if you can cultivate contentment, contentment is basically happiness. Gratitude. Beautiful way to start your meditation practice, because gratitude, if you bring gratitude to mind, then it's overcoming a lot of negative feelings. Another concept here is guarding the senses using wise reflection. So the wise reflection is asking, is this thing that I'm thinking about wanting to do or say or whatever, is it wholesome or unwholesome? Like, is it going to harm or not harm self or others? Guarding the senses also involves just seeing, just hearing, just smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, rather than looking at all the fine details. You may go in the grocery store with your grocery list, and then there's all these advertisements for junk food and various things bombarding you. And so if your mind goes out to all the details of that, then you're going to start desiring to like double your shopping list. But if you can just think, seeing, hearing, and just stay with your grocery list, then you can probably get through there without desire being brought up. Another aspect of this is for a wise reflection here is when there's some kind of desire or something, is looking at, okay, what's the benefit of this? Like, if I got this thing in my life, how would it improve my life, or make me happy or whatever? But then also looking, what are the drawbacks? Like, is it going to cost me a lot of money and sort of put me in debt? Or is it going to take a lot of maintenance, and then I'm just, going to be miserable trying to take care of it? Or is it going to break, readily? How sturdy is it? Am I going to be miserable because it's broken down so fast? Or am I just going to get bored with it? Like, think about in the past how many things you've sort of gotten, and then in a couple of weeks they're just taking up space in the closet because you didn't stay. The attraction didn't stay with you. So remember, wise reflection is looking at all these different things and feeling the hot coal, so you just automatically dropped it. So it's not saying, I really want that, but I shouldn't do it. Like, that's trying to use willpower. We don't want to be using willpower. We want wise reflection, looking at the benefits, looking at the drawbacks, and how do they stack up? And if the drawbacks are outweighing it, then when you can really see that, then you're not going to want it anymore. So that's using wisdom power instead of willpower. And then I think the final concept in here is the sati sampajanya. Sati is mindfulness, and sampajanya is known by several different sort of phrases, but one translation is situational awareness. Okay, so mindfulness, we need mindfulness all the time, but mindfulness has many degrees to it. So the mindfulness that we're using in daily life is sort of a lesser degree than the mindfulness that we're going to use when we finally get to our meditation practice. So far, we're not yet at our meditation practice. We're just in daily life, taking care of our morality, using wise reflection, whatever. So we have to have a degree of sati all the time so that we don't burn our food when we're cooking it. We don't walk out into traffic when we're crossing a street. Sati is always necessary. There's just degrees. And then sampajanya is knowing, okay, what I'm doing right now, like, what's the purpose of what I'm doing right now? And is what I'm, how I'm going about this, is it appropriate? Is it appropriate for the outcome that I want? So sati, mindfulness, is just awareness of the present, plus memory. Sati also includes memory. What have you been taught about what's skillful, unskillful, what's wholesome, what's unwholesome, what's harmful, what's not harmful? So there's the memory of that, plus awareness of what's happening in the moment. And then the sampajanya sort of adds on this other component, what's the purpose of what I'm doing? Not just being aware. And I gave the cute little story that I think Ajahn brought up of this rich person going out for the night and saying to her house guard, now make sure, that you guard the place. And he says, oh yes, I'll be very mindful. I'll be very mindful. And so the robbers came and he mindfully watched them came in and he mindfully watched them carrying out the jewelry. And so when the lady came back home and said, where's all my stuff? Why weren't you mindful? He says, oh, I was. I mindfully watched them come in. I mindfully watched them pick up all your valuables. I mindfully watched them take them out. So that's just sati. But we need the sampajanya. Like, what am I doing? What's the purpose? And is it suitable? So he totally lacked sampajanya. Okay. So all of these things that I mentioned, I'll just say them all over again: contentment, gratitude, guarding the senses, using wise reflection, this sati sampajanya, mindfulness, and situational awareness. They're all part of the step 6 of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the 4 right efforts. And the 4 right efforts, 2 of them are to prevent the hindrances, the defilements, the things that are blocking our progress on the path, to help us abandon those, and then to help us develop all the skillful means. Okay, so all of these things happen off the cushion. This is daily life. So in daily life, whatever it is that you're doing, you're having this awareness of this, this mindfulness, this situational awareness, this wise reflection, so that whatever you're doing, you're aware, is this causing harm or not to self or others? Is this one of the hindrances? Desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, or doubt about the Buddha's teachings. So that's what the purpose of mindfulness is prior to getting to the cushion. It's to let go of all of these things that are getting in the way of our spiritual practice. And our spiritual practice, the aim of that is to come to the end of suffering, to be happy. The goal of this whole practice is to be happy. And so our mindfulness that we're doing off the cushion is to help us to be aware of what's coming in that's going to interfere with that. And so to be aware of it and abandon that, and then to be aware of what's being helpful and just allow that to increase. Now, there are a couple of situations in daily life when we can sort of bring in our meditation object. And that's like if you're stuck on, hold on the phone, you're phoning somebody and they put you on hold. So you have nothing else to do, or you're driving the car and you're at a red light or a construction project and you're having to wait for a while. Well, then you could go to your meditation object because you're not doing anything else and you've got the opportunity to do that. Or if you're doing some really mundane activity that you don't really have to think about, vacuuming or sweeping the floor or something, brushing your teeth, then you could be with your meditation object. So it's more like meditation. But for the rest of the time, when you're interacting, doing things, whatever, mindfulness is there and the situational awareness, it's there to help you be aware Is something unwholesome coming up, something that could be causing harm, and then letting that go. Okay. So after we've done all this, and if our mind is settled enough that we can focus, at least for a little while, then we're ready to sit down on the cushion and do meditation. And in the Noble Eightfold Path, this is called samasati, or right mindfulness. And this is basically our meditation practice. And so, if we're like super angry, somebody did something to us or whatever, and we're super angry, you're not going to be able to sit down and meditate. You're going to have to do this step 6, all those things I just mentioned, to get yourself settled. Or if you're just, like desire is way up, you're just, you're hungry and all you can think about is food or something, you're going to have to take care of that or deal with that before you can sit down, because you need some degree of ability to focus on a meditation object when you're on the cushion. Now, of course, once you sit down to meditate, maybe with if breath is your meditation object, you may be with it for a while, and then one of these hindrances comes in and you start remembering some negative thing somebody said to you, and then that triggers you off, and there you are, you're just all your mind, you're just in this super angry attack, and there's no way you can get yourself back to the breath. Well, then you can keep sitting on the cushion, but you're just going to have to go back to step 6, using wise reflection and all these other things, guarding the senses, whatever, to get that settled down, and then come back to your meditation object. Okay, so the Buddha, for samasati, what this is called when you read the suttas, when you read the Buddha's teachings, it's called satipatthana, the 4 focuses of mindfulness. So there's a long sutta that talks about this, and then in the Sanghamitta Nikaya, there's a whole chapter of about 50 suttas. So there's about, in total, about 52 suttas on this in the Buddhist teachings. So satipatthana basically equals samasati, which basically equals what we call our meditation practice when we're sitting on the cushion. And this is different than, as I said, than the mindfulness that we do in daily life, because the Buddha starts these teachings by saying, there are the roots of trees, there are the empty huts, go and meditate. So he's saying, go into seclusion, go into a quiet place. So as much as possible, when you're setting up your meditation practice, you're trying, to optimize conditions and see if you can have a quiet place. I mean, if you live in a household with kids and stuff, it may be difficult, but you do your best to try and carve out some place that's quiet to be able to do this. These 4 focuses of mindfulness that are mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta, they're basically giving you the progression from a course, from what's sort of coarser to what's very fine. So we start usually with the breath. And if you read the Satipatthana Suttas, it gives you some kind of an outline, but doesn't give you a how-to. But if you read the Anapanasati Sutta, which is the sutta, the teaching on mindfulness of in and out breathing, then the Buddha says there, this is the way to do the Satipatthana. This is how to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation is doing Anapanasati, mindfulness of in and out breathing. So what I really want to convey to you tonight is this is really simple. All you need to do is breath meditation. And if you just start with the initial instructions on breath meditation, then everything else sort of unfolds sort of naturally. So the first 4 stanzas of breath meditation, like first of all, it's saying like go to your secluded place and just be aware that you're breathing. So you're just sort of aware that breath is coming in and out. And then you get a little bit more sort of focused. Now you sort of notice, oh, sort of what are the qualities of this breath? Is it sort of like a longish breath or a short breath or medium? Absolutely doesn't matter how long or short it is. It's just getting your brain to just be a little bit more focused. Is it sort of long or short? And then the next instruction is to be with the breath. Notice the breath when it first starts to come in. Stay with it, and then notice when the in-breath stops. And then there might be a little gap before you start breathing out. So if there is, you notice that. There may not be. As soon as you finish breathing in, you may start breathing out. So it's just being aware of that. The whole in-breath, plus or minus a gap. And then the very beginning, notice the beginning of when you start to breathe out, all the way out. And then notice when you stop. And then again, there may be a gap between the end of the out breath and the beginning of the next in breath. So hopefully prior to sitting down on the cushion, we've dealt with sort of the major hindrances, the major things that are getting in the way of our being able to focus. But there's going to be subtle ones. And so when they come up, you just sort of notice it and then just redirect your mind back to your breath. As I mentioned, if it gets really strong, well, then you may have to just pause in this attempt to focus on the breath and go back to step 6 and use the guarding of the senses, wise reflection, etc., to the 4 right efforts to get things settled down so that you can come back and focus again. And then that's how simple it is. It's just being with the breath, being with the whole breath, just letting go of these little subtle hindrances that are left over. If they come up, just coming back. And then just by itself, being there, joy is going to start to arise. Calmness, like calming, is going to arise. So the second stanza of both the Satipatthana and the Anapanasati teachings is Vedana or Vedana, which is sort of the basic emotional reaction or a basic sort of experience that we have with any sensory experience. As soon as you hear, see, smell, touch, taste, or think something, there's an immediate response of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. But as you're doing the breath meditation, if you're successful in doing that, you're not getting dragged away with some major hindrances. If you're successful in doing that, then it's going to be pleasant Vedana that comes up. And that's going to evolve into stronger and stronger feelings of joy and bliss, gladness, happiness. So this is just sort of a natural unfolding when we're able to be mindful, able to be focused on one thing. This is just a natural unfolding. And then as our breath calms, our mind calms, then we start to get in, and we've withdrawn from the sensory world, so we're not paying attention to whatever's happening out there, sights and sounds and whatever, and even our thoughts. Then we start to have an experience of the pure mind, a very expansive kind of feeling. And when you're starting to get in touch with the pure mind, it usually shows as a nimitta, which means nimitta means sign. And often that, for most people, is a light. You'll start to see a light. And at the beginning, usually this light can be different colors and can be moving around. So you want to ignore it at that phase because it's not stable enough. You stay with your breath, stay with your breath. But eventually that nimitta becomes very bright and stable and still. And then at that point, you can switch your attention to it because it's going to be grabbing your attention because it's so strong. And then the fourth focus of mindfulness, this is done afterwards. Like the whole point of this mindfulness is to take us into stillness, into what we call the jhana states, which are very calm, still, expansive, joyful, blissful states, during which there's no thinking. But when you come out of those states, then you're going to do the fourth focus, which is reflecting on impermanence. Because you're going to have experienced a lot of impermanence, like sights will have disappeared, like all of your body senses disappear when you get into these deep states of stillness and deep states of jhana. So you're not, so sight disappears, sound, hearing disappears, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, all of this disappears. All negative emotions disappear. You're just have these beautiful feelings of bliss and expansiveness and whatever. And so then you're really able to focus when you come out of this on what are called the three characteristics. Major one being impermanence, the impermanence of things. And I is going to be talking much more about this next week. Let's see. So I'll just say again, the whole purpose of this samasati, this right mindfulness, is to calm our minds. So there's different words for this: samatha, calming, or samadhi, jhanas. And the reason we want to calm our minds is because along with calming comes clarity of seeing, clear seeing. And then with this clear seeing, then we're going to be able to develop the insights that lead to awakening, that lead to enlightenment. So that's our purpose here. This is just one thing I just learned. I listened to a workshop series by Ajahn Brahmali on this topic. And one of the things that's mentioned in the first focus, body, so that's mostly just focusing on the breath. But there's also this meditation called the 31 parts of the body, or the 4-element meditation. And what Ajahn Brahmali said is this is an alternative to the breath if you can't get your breath to be stable, like if your just mind is constantly wandering and you just can't get it to be stable. Then he's saying that this is a different kind of meditation you can use to try and settle the mind. The 31 parts of the body is reviewing not only what you see on the exterior of the body, but all the sort of internal organs, all the bits and pieces that are inside of us, to just help us neutralize attachment to the body, because it's our attachment to seeing and hearing and tasting and touching and smelling and thinking that takes us out into the world, out into the sensory world, and prevents us from coming inwards to develop this stillness. And so by doing this meditation, the hope is that helps you to sort of calm down that attachment enough to be able to come inwards. Now he's saying this isn't always appropriate for everybody, especially if you're in a relationship, because you don't want to be looking at your partner and thinking of their liver and intestines and feces things like this. And so in that case, it's much better to do the 4 elements. It's sort of taking our body and dividing it into fire, which is the heat, how hot or cold is it? Earth element, what are the solid parts, within us? The water element, everything that's sort of liquid, and then the air element, and that's sort of a little more neutral. It might be better to do that. We've taught both of these a long time ago. I believe if you search through past YouTubes, that there are some teachings on both of these meditations. Otherwise, before the end of the year, you can make appointments with Ahimsa or myself if you want to try these out. If you want more instruction, then we can give you more instruction for those too. I is the best person to talk to about the elements because she's done a lot of practice with the elements. I haven't. Let's see if there's anything else. How do you know if you're progressing on the path? You feel more peaceful. So that's one way to sort of know. It's just this feeling of peacefulness. The opposite of the hindrances are the 7 factors of awakening. And these are like 2 sides of a coin. When we're abandoning or decreasing the hindrances, the factors of awakening automatically increase. So we can come at this from either way. We can focus on abandoning hindrances, or we can focus on encouraging the factors of awakening, which include gladdening the mind and joy and bliss, all kinds of good things. So, but anyway, they seesaw with one another automatically. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to say. So I really wanted to make it clear about what the before the cushion practice is in daily life. It's this like sati sampajanya, this being mindful, guarding the senses, trying to let go of things that aren't helpful to us, that aren't wholesome, are harmful, and then increasing things that are wholesome and non-harming. And then when we're sitting down on the cushion, then we're doing this practice of right mindfulness, just focusing on one thing, for example, the breath, and then just letting all these other factors just naturally arise. And when we're sitting on the cushion, we're just dealing with the very subtle hindrances that are left over that we didn't take care of during daily life. Okay, so I'll pause there and open it for discussion. Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but your object of meditation is the 31 body parts and the 4 elements. Is that correct?
It was the 4 elements. Now I'm using the breath, but it was the 4 elements for a while. Yeah.
Okay, so that sort of answered my question, which was if you're using something other than the breath as your object, do you get into your meditation using the breath and then transition to those other objects?
No, not usually.
No.
So what Ajahn Brahmali suggested was that if you're using your breath, but you're just really struggling because your mind's just wandering, you can't do anything, then he was suggested that you switch to something like the 31 body parts or the 4 elements to just try and neutralize this attachment to the body so that you're not running out there into, your mind's not wandering, like running out all the time, and you can come inwards and settle. He's just suggesting it as an alternate means when your mind's really wandering.
Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead, Laurent.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so if I'm having a bad day and my mind is crazy that day, or I'm agitated or something, do you suggest that I shouldn't go to my mat, or just to cultivate the contentment and gratitude and all that stuff before I go to the mat, or should I still go to my mat and meditate?
Well, you could go to your mat, but I suggest you be doing step 6 while you're on your mat until you're
Okay.
settled down enough to go to the breath.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Suzanne.
Hi, Sanghamitta. I just want to say I felt that was a really good explanation of, the starting off the cushion and then moving to the cushion. It was one of the most clear explanations I've heard. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah. You can pass the thanks on to Ajahn Brahmali.
When I see it, yeah.
I'm glad it was clear. I was
Yeah, it
hoping
was
it would
great.
be clear.
Really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
When you're meditating after a busy day or that kind of stuff, never super workshop about being angry at somebody or anything like that, but I have incessant lists
Mm,
of what we need at the store,
yeah.
what goes on a Costco run.
Yeah.
Did I fill out that form for school? Like just the 5 million
Yeah.
things. And that's more what I have trouble.
Yeah.
There's no moral dilemmas.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. Got-
turning
Yeah.
down that volume
Yeah.
that I find the hardest.
So I know some teachers have suggested, now if you have endless lists, this might be difficult, but they were suggesting before you sit down to meditate is just write out your lists, or just do it first and then sit
I
down.
never meditate.
Mhm.
If I did,
Yeah.
if I started doing,
Yeah,
I would never meditate.
So it'd be
Well,
too
and that's what
endless, yeah.
happens is I end up not having a super.
yeah,
Because I'm like, oh, I should get this done first.
yeah.
Oh, I should get that done. And
Okay.
eventually you're like, I should go to bed.
Right. So maybe try something stronger, like can you do walking meditation? You have a hallway you can go back and forth in, or stairs you can go up and down on, or something.
Yeah, I mean.
I would try that, because it's coarser than sitting and just going with the breath. And so going with the walking, so feeling your feet touching the ground. And then the one I like to really help is count how many steps you take on the in-breath, how many steps you take on the out-breath. The answer doesn't matter. It's just giving your brain 3 things to think about. It has to be aware of breathing in and out, has to be aware of feet touching the ground, and it has to be aware of counting. So that gives you so much to do, then it might be hard for the grocery lists to come in.
Right. Okay, thanks.
And Ellen, what you could do, Sanghamitta, share what you shared in the intro class, that how you started. You were doing that, and then sitting for
Oh, right.
5 minutes, and then you sit for 6 minutes, and then
Right. Yeah.
it's
So
the same thing. It was just
Yeah.
busy life.
Yeah.
When she started, super busy life, and a lot of doing energy, a lot.
Yeah. So I had a super crazy brain that was just always doing a million things at once. And to sit down and meditate like just killed me. Like I just wanted to run out of the room screaming. So, but I found the walking meditation really, because it grabbed my mind better, then I could actually experience this peace, like it was quite amazing. So I wanted to learn more of this, but I couldn't do the sitting. So what I would do is, I wanted to go to this meditation retreat where I knew they did 40-minute meditations. So I had to work up to 40 minutes. So I would walk back and forth, do this walking meditation for 35 minutes in my hallway. Then I'd sit down and do 5 minutes of sitting meditation. And then when I was able to cope with 5 minutes of sitting, then I made it 34-6, 33-7.
Yeah, well, and it's not like I can't sit there. I just can't stay focused.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just are thinking. And Ellen, it's because we have so much habit energy, and it is really tough. I mean, we all live in a monastery and we still sit there thinking at times, So it's just very natural. And I remember when I was starting to meditate, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm a jet engine. I'm trying to stop a jet engine, when they land, how much energy they still have. Yeah. So there's just a lot of momentum to our doing and to our thinking.
I feel like that's what it's like.
Yeah, it's just momentum.
You're going.
Yeah, and then you
going,
can't just
and
sit
then
down and
you're like,
turn it off.
Okay,
Yeah.
sitting down,
Yeah.
and then you're like, great, I'm sitting. Let's do things you can do while you're sitting.
Yeah.
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 So I would try the coarser walking,
Yeah.
giving your brain lots to have to do,
Yeah.
just to, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
found that very helpful.
you might try, whatever you're doing at this point, like 3/4 that, the walking, and then sit and another thing can help is counting the breaths. And Ajahn Brahm has a method that I found very useful, where you breathe in, breathe out 1, breathe in, breathe out 2, up to 9, and then you do it up to 8, and you do it up to 7, up to 6, and that also is good. Yeah, and that takes about to do 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Takes around 5 minutes. So you might just try some walking and then see if you can do one of those with the breath, and yeah, and you might experience like, oh, phew, like that was a little bit of a reprieve from do, get done, list. Yeah. Great question. Yeah.
Jocelyn.
Yeah, I have been using that. It's been very helpful, except I feel like it amps me up when I meditate, particularly at night. It's like has me on hyper focus after I've meditated like that. And I'm just wondering if you guys have run into that.
Jocelyn, how long are you sitting at night?
Oh, like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Whenever I can fit in.
So what you might want to do is like do 2 rounds of that and then let it go, and then just be with the breath.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I have. Like
Oh,
I've been
that
doing
is what you're doing. Yeah.
cycle kind of ramps me up to stay focused with the breath, and
Yeah.
then I just kind of let it like relax into it.
Yeah.
And I'll have
Yeah.
thoughts coming in. But they're not as intense as at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. So but you still feel like what, you get up from the cushion and how do you feel?
I find I can't go to sleep very easily. Like I'm almost
Oh,
and
yeah,
more focused and more wanting to do after that.
right.
I mean, this is one thing, you can get energy from meditating. So it's wonderful. You're getting energy after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
but maybe doing sort of a body scan where you breathe into the different parts of your body, that might be more relaxing, you know, like just pick all the top of the head, ears, nose, mouth, neck, shoulder, you know, all your joints, just breathing in 3 breaths to each of those places and then moving on. That you could try something like that to see if it's more relaxing,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
soothing.
Or can you make your meditation like maybe about an hour before you go to bed, like a little bit earlier? And I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting in since the silent retreat, like once every 2 or 3 days. So I feel
Huh.
like just me getting 10-15 has been a success.
That's it's awesome. Totally awesome.
Sometimes I forget my timer and it doesn't go off or something, and I've all of a sudden done 30, but that was only once.
That's way cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
But Jocelyn, that's a good sign. If you're, yeah, it sounds like you're coming out of your meditation with some gain of energy and clarity, you know? So I can see how then it's hard to go to sleep.
Yeah, I felt it really strong since the retreat, and then it's been diminishing, and I'm just like wanting to clasp back onto it.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
yeah, trying to figure out where to fit it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we end? Ending time, right? It's past, right? Nobody seems to be jumping up and down. Except you. Where's my book?
Well, it's in the cabinet because we need the.
What week are we on? Week 4, I think. Week 4. Yeah. Okay. So we'll end with the beautiful emotion of equanimity. Rebecca. So if you can bring to mind a neutral person, somebody you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards, and send these phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. Now bring to mind somebody who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now bring to mind somebody that you have a difficult relationship with and send the phrases to them. You are the owner of your karma. Your happiness and unhappiness depend upon your actions, not upon my wishes for you. I care for you too as a suffering human being, but I cannot keep you from suffering. I wish you too true happiness, but I cannot make your choices for you. And now send the phrases to yourself. I am the owner of my karma. My happiness and unhappiness depend on my actions, not my wishes or hopes. I care for myself, and I am determined to follow the path of peace, the Noble Eightfold Path, the gradual training. I wish myself happiness, and I am determined to make skillful choices. All beings are owners of their karma. The happiness and unhappiness of all beings depend upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. I care for all beings as suffering beings, but I cannot keep them from suffering. I wish all beings true happiness, but I cannot make their choices for them. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed.
Silka, Carmen,
Therese,
Roots,
Ryan,
Harry, Rose,
Lise,
Janice,
Blair,
Jill, Scott,
Leona.
Claire,
May all beings be well and happy.
Gretchen.
Thank you, everyone.